Joe Rogan is a comedian. Joe Rogan has been doing comedy for 20 years. He's been in the public eye for 3 decades, Joe Rogan. Okay, and all the way from Fear Factor to UFC to now. His podcast has been going for years and years and years at this point. He's got thousands of episodes that are available in various media. And so what the left likes to do when they have a public figure who has a lot of taped material is they go through and they find bad old quotes, and then they put a compendium together in the worst possible way. And they put out that compendium in an attempt to get the person to apologize. Because understand, the goal here is not to make Joe Rogan apologize. The goal here is that if Joe Rogan apologizes, then he has justified their accusations in their mind. And now they can just browbeat these corporations into doing anything that they want. Okay, so there's a group that puts out, it's one of these, kind of dark money, left-wing super PAC groups. And their entire goal in life is to destroy voices they don't like. And again, the real reason that all these people don't like Joe Rogan in the end is because Joe Rogan is not an overt left-winger who mirrors all of their particular perspectives, right? He's somebody who will host people like me and people like Jordan Peterson. He's a person who will talk to everybody from Chappelle to me, right? Joe Rogan is a very heterodox kind of guy. And he says he would vote for Bernie Sanders, but he wouldn't vote for Joe Biden, but he might vote for Donald Trump, right? That's the kind of guy that Joe is. By the way, also a super nice guy, and full disclosure, Joe and I are friends. So the basic idea here is that once you release a compendium and you get the guy to apologize, then you cudgel the corporation into either dumping him or into making concessions. And whatever concessions they make are then used as the predicate for the next round. So if Spotify thinks that this is the last round of attacks on Joe Rogan, they got another thing coming. Within 24 hours, I guarantee, there'll be another compendium of bad old things Joe has said. Because it turns out that when people make jokes 20 years ago, it is not hard at all to find things that they have said and string them together in a compendium and put it out there, and we look at it and everybody kind of goes, Well, is not an excuse for deplatforming somebody. If you didn't have a problem with anything Joe Rogan said 10 years ago, if he said nothing about it 10 years ago, shut the F up now, because we all understand what this is, which is an attempt to deplatform Rogan. The entire goal here is to unperson Rogan. We all get that. This is not a well-motivated attempt to change Joe Rogan's thinking. It's an attempt to destroy Joe Rogan because he's too powerful a voice, because he has tens of millions of listeners every week. That's why. Okay, so what happens? This group drops a compendium of Joe Rogan saying the N-word. Now, it's not a compendium of Joe Rogan calling black people the N-word. That's not what he's doing. It's a compendium of Joe Rogan saying the N-word while reading things like rap lyrics. Now, this has been a widely debated concept in American life for quite a while. Like, to pretend this has not been sort of a controversial and widely debated concept is very silly. So I, as an individual who's on media all the time, I never say the N-word ever. I will never say the N-word because I know the rules. And I also know the deliberate way in which the left takes people out of context. They've been doing this for years. If you use the N-word in order to condemn people using the N-word, or if you say people should not use the word bleep, but you say the N-word, they will cancel you for doing that. They literally did this to the science reporter at the New York Times. He was discussing the various ways you should and should not use the N-word in public conversation. And they literally canned him, the COVID reporter for the New York Times, who'd been nominated for the Pulitzer, I believe. They canned him because he had said it like 5 years ago in the context of condemning it. I remember them doing the same thing to Dr. Laura way back when. She said the N-word on air, but it was to talk about why you should not use the N-word. Right? The N-word is so toxic in American life that there have been people who have lost their jobs or been suspended for using a completely unrelated word, which is spelled Niggardly. Right? The word means stingy, right? Completely unrelated. People have lost their job for that because you should know not to use a word that sounds sort of like the N-word. Okay, that's how sensitive this word is. But there has been this widely fraught debate over whether if you are saying lyrics in a song, you can use the N-word if you are white. Now, to me, this is the stupidest thing in the world. If there's a lyric in a song and people are allowed to repeat it, everybody should be allowed to repeat the lyric. Obviously, it's not meant as a disparaging term about black people if it's being used in a lyric of a song. Fortunately for me, I don't listen to that type of music, nor do I like that type of music. In fact, I have controversially stated I don't think that rap is music at all. But put my views of rap aside, the question of as to who gets to say the N-word while quoting rap lyrics has been sort of a fraught topic for quite a while. But what Joe did is he read that word while he was talking about comedy routines and while he was talking about various rap lyrics. They strung all this together in a compendium and then they released it. And it comes out on Twitter. And of course, the entire left says, Joe Rogan, he's a racist. Now, this has been their pitch ever since this started, because for the left, anything bad falls into the category of racist. So they don't like Joe Rogan because Joe Rogan doesn't like Biden. And therefore, Joe Rogan is bad. And Joe Rogan platforms people like me or he talks to people like Eric Weinstein, or he talks to people like Dave Rubin, or he talks to Jordan Peterson. So he's bad. That means that he's secretly racist. Nicole Hannah-Jones had said this last week. No evidence whatsoever provided. Joe Rogan's a racist. This video is, in fact, sponsored by ExpressVPN. I mean, what if there was somebody out there every single day watching every single thing that you did, trying to monitor every single thing that you did? I wouldn't want that guy having my internet data, and that is why I use ExpressVPN. See, here is the thing. Your ISP is allowed to store logs of every website you've ever visited and legally sell that data to anyone. You don't want them monitoring your online activity. ExpressVPN reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so your internet provider cannot see or log what you do online. All I have to do is open up my phone, and then I just go over to the ExpressVPN app. Doink, I hit it. Right now, I am not connected, but behold, and the angels begin singing. For now, my internet activity is protected. Now, many of you might be thinking, well, if I'm routing all my data through a VPN, doesn't that just mean the VPN can see what I'm doing and log my data instead? Ah, you're very clever. They were the first major VPN provider to engineer all of their VPN servers to run in RAM. That makes it impossible for their VPN servers to store any data, including logs, of any ExpressVPN customer. They even had one of the biggest assurance firms, PwC, audit their technology. It's no wonder CNET and Wired named ExpressVPN the #1 VPN in the world. Stop letting people keep logs of what you do online. Visit expressvpn.com/BenYT right now. Find out how you can get 3 months for free. Joe then came out and he issued an apology for using the N-word. And again, I think this is coming, frankly, from a good place, because I think that if you haven't been through this war, which I have many, many times because I'm a conservative, and so this has been my life for the last several years, is that anything I say is picked apart 6 ways from Sunday and then used as an excuse to try and cudgel me online. So I don't care about it anymore. It just bounces off. I've been doing it for too long. But if you're Joe Rogan and you have friends on all sides of the political aisle, and you're really not conservative, I mean, Joe is not a conservative guy. He has conservative leanings on particular issues, but he's definitely not like a down-the-line Republican in any way, shape, or form. I mean, he himself, he's like, I'm kind of a dope-smoking libertarian/socialist, anarcho-socialist capitalist. Like, he's all over the place politically. So Joe's not used to this, which I get. And if you're not used to it, if you've never been through it, folks, you've never been through it. It is brutal. If all of a sudden there's just a tsunami of hatred coming toward you and people labeling you something you know that you aren't, and people labeling Joe Rogan en masse a racist, and he knows he's not, then you feel like you need to make an apology because you think that these people are coming in good faith, but they're not coming in good faith. They're coming for your neck. So here is what Joe Rogan had to say.
It's a very unusual word, but it's not my word to use. I'm well aware of that now, but for years I used it in that manner. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist. But whenever you're in a situation where you have to say, I'm not racist, you f***ed up. And I clearly have f***ed up. And that's my intention to express myself in this video, to say...
Stop it right there. So first of all, I don't buy this whole thing that the word doesn't belong to me, so I can't use the word. Either words belong to everybody or they belong to nobody. I really don't buy the rule that certain people get to use this word, but other people don't get to use this word. I think that's very silly. Frankly, I think that we should get rid of the word entirely in the English language if nobody is allowed to use it. It is of no value if only one group can use it and another group cannot use it. But put that aside. Again, you can see, because it's coming out of Joe's mouth, that what Joe is saying here is he is taking it as a critique of him. He's saying, I'm not racist, but if you think I'm racist, then I've done something wrong, which of course is not true. Nobody thinks he's a racist. The people coming after him don't think he's racist. They think they've got their hooks in him and they think they have their hooks in Spotify. Joe's making the mistake here of acting in good faith when the people who are dealing with him hate his guts and want him to die, at least career-wise. And so here's the conclusion of his statement.
There's nothing I can do to take that back. I wish I could. Obviously, that's not possible. I do hope that, if anything, that this can be a teachable moment.
Okay, so, of course, this is never, ever about what Rogan actually said. If anybody had been bothered by anything that he said 10 years ago, it's not like racism was not an issue in America 10 years ago. Barack Obama was president of the United States 10 years ago. He'd been president for several years 10 years ago. So these clips, I mean, it's not as though we had never thought about racism until the last 5 minutes. That's not true. Nobody objected at the time because nobody found it offensive at the time. They're retroactively finding it offensive because they wish to find it offensive because they wish to oust him. That's what they actually are interested in doing. Okay, so other artists have started because they want to see Rogan go away. Other artists in order to make a name for themselves, they've started dropping out. Many of these artists are sort of second-rate artists or has-beens. You haven't seen like Taylor Swift dump off Spotify because she's making too much money from Spotify. But you have seen people like India Arie, who I've never even heard of, who said that she was going to drop off of Spotify unless they got rid of Rogan. And Arie said that Rogan shouldn't even be uttering the word. Don't even say it under any context. Don't say it. That's where I stand. I've always stood there. Well, whatever. But again, this is not about anything remotely resembling an attempt to make Joe Rogan a better person or make him understand. It's not a teachable moment. They're not seeking to teach. They're seeking to beat the living hell out of you. That's what this is about. And we all know the rules here. The rules are that if you give the left what it wants, then and you become part of the mob, then they leave you alone. And if you're anything, in any way, at odds with them, then not. So Dwayne The Rock Johnson, this is pathetic. So last week, after Joe Rogan came out and kind of quasi-apologized, not really, but kind of, with regard to COVID material, he came out and he said, this is a good statement, brother. Okay, and then folks on the left started hitting The Rock with this video. And he immediately backtracked. Suggesting that he was upset, that now he was more fully aware. He said, I was not aware of his N-word use prior to my comments. And he said it was a learning moment. And by the way, this is how it works in Hollywood. If you defend anybody who you are quote unquote friends with, or anybody who you're even friendly with, or even an acquaintance with, they will come after you so hard. I've told you this story before because it was relevant in the news a couple of years ago when Mark Duplass was an indie director. He came to our offices and he wanted to know more about the Second Amendment. So I gave him sort of an education from a conservative view on the Second Amendment. And before he left, I said, don't bother tweeting about it or writing about it because people will attack you and then you'll feel compelled to run away. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. 2 weeks later, he issued a statement online saying, I disagree with Ben Shapiro about pretty much everything, but he's a nice guy. He got hit with a huge wave of hatred. He immediately put up a statement basically calling me a racist and a transphobe. Okay, that's how it works in Hollywood. So Dwayne The Rock Johnson did this. Said it was a learning moment for him. Instead of him just saying, listen, Joe Rogan's a comedian. He's used that words in a bunch of different contexts. I know him. He's not a racist. End of story, which is what you would do if you were friends with a person. If you had any level, any modicum of respect or decency with regard to other people, as opposed to saving your own skin, this is what you would do. Instead, he ran like a screaming little girl, did Dwayne The Rock Johnson, away from his friend, Joe Rogan. Okay, but here's the problem. Everybody who's in media has got this stuff in their past. I mean, here's The Rock, not all that long ago, when he was with WWE, talking about how John Cena was a quote-unquote bloated transvestite Wonder Woman. But you're not going to see the left come after The Rock for this. Because they don't care about what The Rock had to say. The Rock's on their side right now. He's busy canceling Joe Rogan. If you become one of the cancel culture mob, they leave you alone. And everybody knows the incentive structure. Here's The Rock, like not that long ago, doing stuff that's as bad or worse than anything Rogan said.
Like a bloated transvestite Wonder Woman, ready to fight crime. Pew, 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 pew.
I mean, the Rock has been deleting stuff from like 2011, in which he calls transgender people trannies. And it's a quote, he deleted that. And so he's cleansing his tweets because he knows what's coming for him also if he refuses to go along with the left. But here's the rule, always and forever. There are no rules. It is just power. This is the clearest thing. The left has no rules. They only have power. And the power is the power to destroy you and destroy your career unless you do everything they want you to do. Which is why it's fine that Joe Biden used to say the N-word in particular contexts. I mean, here's Joe Biden, the president of the United States, using the N-word just, way back when.
In a confidential portions of your staff memo, they brought to your attention the allegation that important legislators in defeating the Nunes plan in the basement said, quote, we already have a mayor, we don't need any more big shots.
Okay, so he's quoting somebody saying the N-word, right? It's not Joe Biden calling somebody black the N-word. Right, that's exactly what Joe Rogan is now under fire for doing. But Joe Biden is one of the good ones, so it's totally fine. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.